G'day everyone, my name's Sam. If you've turned on this video, then you know why you're here. This is yoga for runners, or a post-run stretch. Now, I've done a couple of these videos before. I wouldn't necessarily call myself a running enthusiast because that would suggest that I like the act of running. It's super challenging, it is every single time I do it, but there's something about it that keeps me coming back to it. It's a moving meditation of sorts. But as a yoga teacher as well, I understand where in the body needs a stretch out after a run. So majority of this practice will be done from the floor because the last thing you want to do is be on your feet after you've been on your feet for a long run. So my hope is that you, after you finish your run, you lay down on the grass, you whack out your phone because of course you've got it on you because you've been tracking your run on Strava or whatever it may be. And you lay on the grass, you take your shoes off and you move through this post-run stretch just to really honor the body, honor the parts of the body that have worked during the run and give them a chance to lengthen and stretch out. So when you're ready, we'll get right into it. Right, so as I mentioned, this will mostly be done from the floor, but you absolutely need to take your shoes off. Hopefully you've done that already. Once you've taken your shoes off, take the socks off as well so you can feel the feet earth into the floor beneath you. From all fours position, tuck the toes under, just send the hips back towards the heels, and this first space here is just a chance to stretch out through the bottoms of the feet, so you move the heels in and out. So we stretch out through all 10 of the toes. We've just completed our run. We give ourselves a chance to let the breath slow down as well. I know for myself, my intention when running is always to slow down the breath, but when you get deep into the run, deep into the miles or kilometers, the breath tends to go out the window, even though we try really hard not to. So now is your chance just to close down the mouth, just to breathe nice and slow in and out through the nose. Keep the toes tucked under. Walk the hands back towards you. Let the knees lift off the mat, beginning to stretch out through Achilles, through calves. You reach the arms out in front of you. Let the head drop down a little. If your heels will allow it, let your heels drop down to the floor. Nice deep stretch for the calves. Feeling a little bit of weight leaning forward so the knees are moving in front of the toes. Nice deep flexion through the knee joint. A nice dorsiflexion through the ankle, and again that deep stretch through the back of the calves. And if you walk your arms out a little further forward, you'll feel the shoulder blades draw apart. That'll give more space for the lungs to expand. You'll be able to breathe a little longer, a little deeper. And take one more breath like that. Nice one. Dropping the knees back down, we'll untuck the toes now. Sit the hips back on top of the heels, and then walking fingertips by the hips, just lean back to lift your right knee off the mat. Now getting into the front of the ankle, the top of the foot there as well. The higher the knee lifts, the more you'll feel that stretch up the muscle outside of the right shin, the tibialis anterior, or the tib ant. Tib ant gets an absolute pounding when we run, so it's really important to feel this stretch. I know for myself, we'll swap knees now, so drop the right knee down, lift the left. I used to think when I first started running that I was suffering from shin splints because my shins were hurting so much, but really it was just my tib ants, or my tibialis anterior muscle outside the shin. They just never worked that hard before. And it is a shock to the body if you're asking of a muscle hundreds times more effort than they're used to. So you need to stretch just as much as you need to run. I know we don't want to hear that, but stretching is super important. What I mention all the time is yoga is great for your running, but running isn't great for your yoga. There's a happy balance in there somewhere. I haven't quite found it yet, but let me know in the comments below if you found that happy balance. Come onto all fours. We're going to shuffle the knees a little further back behind the hips. Keep the toes tucked under. Arms are nice and straight. We're just going to lean the hips forwards and down. I'm going to keep the knees on the ground for now. If you need to, a little bend in the elbows just to really pull the shoulder heads back. So we think of this like a modified upward facing dog, keeping the toes tucked under, feeling the front body start to lengthen. If you firm your glutes here for a moment, you'll feel the hip flexors start to lengthen. Take an in breath. Exhale, send the hips back towards the heels. Really push through the hands. So you're tractioning through the spine. And we reset. Inhale, we roll forward. Hips move down. Chest lifts up. Exhale, send the hips back. One more time like that. Inhale, come forwards. Hips lower down. Exhale, send the hips back towards the heels. Really press through the hands. And then we'll lift the hips up and back to downward facing dog. I know I said majority of this practice will be done from the floor. We'll get there soon. But downward facing dog, perfect opportunity for you to pedal out through the feet, to move the hips from side to side, to again lengthen out through the back of the legs, just to get into all those little niggles. Now we don't want this down dog to be stationary. You want to move in any way that feels good for you, just to nourish back of the legs into the glutes and the low back as well. So you shift from side to side, you get a little more length through the sides of the body, the obliques, into the lats as well. Take a breath. Let it out. Shuffle the feet back a little. Down dog's a little longer. We're going to move from downward facing dog to an upward facing dog, but keeping the toes tucked under the whole time. So lift high on the toes, roll forward, come through a plank, then drop the hips down towards the floor, but let them stop just before they arrive. Roll the shoulders back, lift the chest, breathe in. Exhale, send the hips up and back to downward facing dog. You can do that 2 more times. Inhale, we roll forwards, arms stay nice and straight, hips drop down, that's your inhale. Exhale, downward facing dog. Let's do that 1 more time. Inhale, we roll forward, hips drop down. Exhale, downward facing dog. We get there, drop the knees down. Once knees drop, the bottom drops, and yes, now we are on the ground for the remainder of this practice. We're setting up for deer pose. Start by taking your right calf, your right shin in front of you, parallel with the top edge of your mat. If you don't have a mat and you're on the grass, it's parallel. You're trying to create a 90-degree angle as best you can. And the same 90-degree angle with the left leg. So it's your right shin and your left thigh that are parallel to each other. And all we're going to do is start to lean forwards and fold over the right thigh. Depending on how tight the outside of your hip is in this particular variation, your right hip, that is your glute med and your TFL muscles. They're responsible for taking the leg away from the body. But again, they also get a pounding during the run. So if they're super tight, torso moves a little more to the right-hand side. If you have more space, torso moves over to the left. If you really wanted to feel, you could take your left forearm, pop it to the sole of the right foot, and interlace the fingers, and let your head drop down here. So you want gravity to do its job here. You want the weight of the torso to be leaning over the thigh. Just really starting to feel the muscle relax. So that we're in this heightened state during your run, that constant pounding onto the road. Now we need time, and we need space to let the muscles soften and relax. And keeping the legs where they are, we'll just start to lift the chest. This is my favorite variation of the deer pose. This really works to lengthen into the side of the body. So in a moment, we're going to see if the right shoulder can move into this little space underneath the right knee. So you can use your left hand, hold under the right shin, try and tuck under. Right shoulder rests down. Now you open the chest towards the left-hand side, reach your left arm up, and then extend your left arm towards the front of the room. Have your palm lifting up towards the ceiling. So we still have gravity on our side. Now by extending that left arm forwards, we work to lengthen through left lateral side of the body. You can use your right hand here to continue to turn your chest up a little more. So rather than the chest falling down, we are trying to lift the chest up. Take a breath. Gently return, left hand down towards the mat. We'll start to lift the chest. Taking this deer pose into a pigeon pose, closing the angle of the right leg a little. Think of that more like a 45-degree angle now. And then we'll extend the left leg back behind us. So now the hips are nice and square. We'll do our best to tuck under the left toes to start with and move the left knee backwards. So we are working to get more length of the outer right hip towards the floor. By more length, I mean it's getting closer. It may not be there at all, and that's completely fine. So when you feel your depth, keep the back toes tucked under to start with and lift the back knee, really working to lengthen through the front of the left hip. Flex into the left glute, really feel the hip flexor release, and then when you feel comfort, you untuck the back toes, drop the knee down, and drop the head. Again, taking time. And then slowly walking hands back towards the body, we're going to fall off onto the right hip. Swing the left leg out in front of us. So left leg is nice and long. We're going to pick up the right leg and work to cross it over the top of the left. Like you were trying to get the knees to stack on top of each other. So lifting the hips and lowering them back down is going to give you a little more chance to get those knees closer towards each other. If they're not close at all, that's completely fine. Keep the left foot flexed to start with. Little walk forwards of the arm. You find a fold or an amount of fold that is there for you right now. Keeping the foot active, so the more you flex the toes towards you, the more you're going to feel that in the calf, but particularly where the calf attaches to the hamstring at the back of the knee. That's where we want to feel this. You can flex into your left quads as well. You might even flex so much that your left heel just levitates off the mat a little bit. That's when you know the foot is flexing, that's when you know the quad is engaged. Take a breath. And keep everything the same. Just point the foot, curl the toes in, getting that stretch through tibialis anterior, top of the foot as well. After you curl the toes in, if you feel the toes cramp, you spread the toes out wide. Maybe we fold just a little bit more. Last breath. And then we'll rise up. This next part is fun for me. So the left leg is going to stay where it is, and we're actually going to do our very best to keep the left heel still on the floor. And then we're going to pick up the right leg. So you may be holding on to the right foot with the left hand and the right knee with the right hand. Or if you have more space, and maybe you're a little more of a yogi and a little less of a runner, you might be able to use the inner eyes of the elbows. Then we lift the shin, so it was parallel with the chest. We try and draw it in a little closer towards us. Now, you may be thinking, Sam, when does the fun begin? Well, the fun begins when we start to descend our back down onto the floor. But we really want to see if we can keep the left heel pressing down. So there's a resistance. The shin is moving away from you as you pull back on it at the same time. And through that resistance, we try to lower down slowly. Again, left heel stays on the floor. You get as low as you can, and then you push the left heel out in front of you. Left glute is firm. You bring the right leg a little closer towards you. If you want to feel even more, you look back over the right shoulder. Imagine you're taking the right knee down towards the floor. Little more opening. Keep pressing that left heel forwards. And then chest comes back through center. Again, here's the fun part. Left heel stays down. We rise back up. Ah, nice work. Release that right leg. Give it a chance to shake out. Wow. Nice work. We have to do that all again on the opposite side now. So left shin is out in front of you. Right shin parallel with what is the right edge of your mat. So again, if you've got no mat, it is your left shin and your right thigh that are parallel to each other. And you fold over the direction of your left thigh. Remember, if you want to feel less, you lean the weight over to the left a little. You want to feel more, you lean the weight to the right. If there's space, right forearm comes to the sole of the left foot, you interlace the fingers. Now, if we do practice together often, you may know that I keep talking about how I pulled my left hamstring during a run. That was a sprint where I hadn't warmed up efficiently. I just went for it. I heard the hamstring pop. That was about maybe 6 weeks ago. It's coming back slowly. It was a scary sound to hear, especially being a yoga teacher. I knew, oh well, that's me done for the next 6 months. But it just goes to show how having your muscles and your body primed and prepared for whatever activity you ask of them is so important. I know for myself, growing up, I was always, ready for anything. I was ready to rock. Didn't need to warm up. Didn't need to do anything. I'd get my skateboard straight down a hill. But as you get a little bit older, the body needs a little bit more time just to warm up, and that's completely fine. It's why we practice yoga. This post-run stretch is super important. Pre-run, you just want to do a light amount of stretching, something a little more explosive. I can do another video on that at another time, but now we're focusing on post-run. Again, we're going to try and wedge the left shoulder to the back of the left knee. Turn the chest, right arm reaches up. Extend that right arm forward. Palm faces up to the ceiling. You breathe like you're sending the breath into the right hand lung, right hand sideways. And slowly we rise. Deer pose becomes your pigeon pose. Close the angle of the left leg, again more like that 45 degree. Extend the right leg back behind you. Try to tuck under the right toes and keep the right knee traveling backwards to get that left hip a little closer towards the floor. Both sides are not going to be even, so just be mindful of that. Keep the back toes tucked to start with. Lift the back knee just to feel the front of that right hip extend. And when you feel comfort, back knee drops. Untuck the back toes. And we rest. If you need support, you can place a block under the left hip. If you don't have support, you can place your fist, pop it under the left hip. I know for me, my hamstring at the moment, just placing that fist underneath there takes the pressure off the hip, gives you a little extra support. And then as we start to lift the torso, we will fall off onto the left hip, swinging the right leg out in front of us. Again, adjust your bottom and work to extend or cross over your left leg over your extended right leg. So right leg is long, left knee is on top. Again, lift and lower the hips to adjust so you feel comfortable. Right toes stay flexing to start with as you find some amount of fold, whatever's there for you. And working to find this stretch right at the back of the knee, so toes flex towards the face, right thigh is engaged, maybe even the right heel levitates as you flex the quad and the foot as much as you can. Then move from the flexed foot to the pointed foot. Curl the toes in just for a moment, stretch out through the ankle, top of foot, and then spread the toes nice and wide. Tib ant starting to get some length here. Calf starting to flex, just noticing the difference between the flexed foot and the pointed foot. And as we start to lift, again, this is the fun part. You may not have had any fun last time, and that's okay. I had fun, and that's the main thing. So you pick up the left leg. Again, you could use the hands around the knee and the foot, or you could use the elbows. Try to turn the chest square to the front of the mat. Keep the left, or the right heel, I should say, as close to the floor as you can as we work to slowly lower down. Slowly, slowly. There's a resistance. Shin moves away as you pull back on it at the same time. And you want the right leg to stay flexed, so you stamp the heel forwards. You want to feel a little more, you look back over the left shoulder. Imagine the left knee was dropping down to the floor. Take an in-breath. Exhale, we come back through center. And you try to keep that right heel on the ground, and we rise back up. Oh, nice work. Extend the left leg out long in front of you. Give them a chance to shake out. Nice work. We're almost there. We're going to come back onto the feet and then drop the knees down onto the floor. So the toes are going to stay tucked under, and then all we're going to do is work to lean back a fraction. So try to take the fingertips to the floor. Think about the glutes firming to try and press the hips forwards a little bit. So it'll look like this. Very subtle action. If you can, you rest the palms down flat. You try and roll the shoulder blades back a little more. So the toes are tucking, the glutes are flexing. We'll just try and lift the hips off the back of the ankles just a little bit, just to really engage through the quadriceps and really lengthen out through the hip flexors. Chest is broad. Hips are lifting. Take an inhale. And then gently lift the knees off the mat. Set the feet flat. As you do, walk the hands back behind you. I'm going to lift for a reverse tabletop. So you roll the shoulder blades back. Lift the hips off the mat. Just have your fingers pointing out to either side. Feeling the stretch across the chest into the front of the shoulders. As much as we try not to be, sometimes we're in a little bit of a hunched or a slouch position when we are running, so trying to broaden and open across the chest and shoulders is really important as well. Take an in-breath. Exhale, we lower the hips down. Nice work. From here, we take it all the way down onto the back. We're going to extend the left leg out in front of us. Bring the right knee in. Give it a squeeze. Let the head drop down. And using the right hand around the right knee, we're going to open the right leg out towards the right hand side. And dependent on your capacity, you could continue to hold the knee, or you could hold onto the outside edge of the right foot with the right hand, and then work to open the leg as it's straight. And still pressing the left heel forwards, keeping both shoulder blades on the ground. Take an in-breath. As you exhale, right leg comes back through center, you swap hands. So left hand holds the leg. As we twist, we tuck under the left hip to really find that twist. And again, this could be done with a bent knee, or if the leg is straight, maybe left hand reaches down to catch hold of the outside edge of the foot. Left heel still pressing forwards. Whether the knee is bent or straight, let's take our right thumb, pop it into the crease of the right hip, and energetically try to move your right hip away from you. A little more length through the outside of the hip. And return both arms and both shoulder blades down onto the mat. Take a breath in. Let it out. And then mindfully release knee or foot. Come back through center and prepare for the opposite side. So you extend your right leg out long in front of you. Give the left knee a squeeze to begin with. And opening left knee out towards the left-hand side of the room. Choosing to stay here, or again, if there's more space, left hand catches the outside edge of the left foot. Extend the leg and try to open it out. Only as much as your right hip will allow. We still want the right hip to stay resting on the mat. Take an in-breath. Exhale, we come back through center and we swap hands. So you roll off onto the outside edge of the right hip. Your right hand is either holding on to your left knee or the outside edge of the left foot. Try to keep both shoulder blades on the ground. Then we take the left thumb, pop it into the crease of the left hip. Try to move the left hip away from you. Take one last breath. Then gently release. Nice and easy. From here, we just come back through center. Now, in a perfect world, I would suggest you stay on your back for the next 5 to 10 minutes. If you have the time, just bring the knees to chest. As you draw the knees in, take them wider. Flex the feet. Little movement from one side to next. Depending on how much time you have, see if you can give yourself maybe 1 minute or 2. Soles of feet together, knees come out wide. So interlace the hands, rest them over the belly, and see how gently you can feel your belly start to rise and fall as you breathe. You've put in the work during the run. Now you've given yourself the opportunity to nourish that which we've pounded against the pavement time and time again. You've given the body the length and the space it needs to help recover from the run. If you have time to sit with your breath and lay in stillness, then embrace that too. I want to thank you so much for practicing. I'll see you again soon. Peace.